Yeah, it's crazy because the whole dynamic has shifted, and like you mentioned, buying a house is one of the most stressful things that you can go through in life. I mean, and the way that it's been the last couple of years, that was just magnified because it was one person getting over on the other one. Like the seller had everything, they just bent him over the barrel. And it's like, you take it and you're gonna like it. And that's the way it was. And now it's starting to shift. Like the barrel's rolling the other way, you know? But I think like if people can get to the point, both agents and buyers and sellers, and come at it from the perspective like, let's find a happy medium. Let's be on the same team. Everybody wants the same thing. You want to sell, you want to buy. Let's find a good spot in the middle where both people can come away from this feeling like you got what you wanted. I mean, that's what it should be like, right?
Welcome to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast, where nothing is off limits. If you're interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, and you want to learn some of the insider secrets and uncensored truths from the true professionals in and around real estate, you've come to the right place. Now, let's buckle up for the uncensored truth about real estate and join your host, Brian Cardenas.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast, where nothing is off limits. And today we've got a special guest here, somebody that actually participates in the real estate world, and he knows what he's doing. So, of course, we had to have him on, Russell Harris with Retsy. Thanks for coming on, Russell.
Thank you.
It's kind of a crazy market. We're just chatting about some of the things that have changed pretty rapidly. And, I think one of the big things that has gone on in the last couple of years, and you're just kind of alluding to it, is, the public maybe really didn't appreciate what realtors did for them, because their perception for the last couple of years has been, put a house on the market, it's going to sell in, 3 hours. And that's not really the case anymore, is it?
No, it's changing really fast.
Yeah, like overnight practically. Yes. I mean, 2-3 weeks ago, I think there was still a different perception. And now at the end of June, we're talking, and the market's taken a dramatic shift in Arizona. What are some of the trends or things that you're seeing right now that's just recently been changing?
Well, I've been noticing commissions have gone up on a lot of listings for buyers agents. Before you saw, I was seeing people do 1% for commissions, and I was like kind of shocked, but that's what it was. I still showed the houses, but now I'm starting to see people go back to 3% for buyers agents. I'm seeing agents even starting to do where they'll put in there that their seller will pay closing costs, which I haven't got closing costs on a client probably for a buyer at least for a year and a half, maybe more than that. That when you would ask for closing costs, the deal, you didn't even get your offer looked at.
Yeah.
So that's changing really quick, where people are starting to, the market's changing, where sellers are starting to realize that they're going to have to kind of be a little bit more open to doing things with the buyer to get a buyer to come in there and buy their houses now.
Right. So, just overall, like, what is something that the public really doesn't understand about like real estate, specifically in this market, that they really do need to understand?
Well, especially now, you got to price the house right. And that was the problem. A lot of times I went to listing appointments and I would have a, seller tell me, oh, well, this company told me my house is worth this much, or I think my house is the nicest house in the block, so I think I should get $80,000 more than the next house that sold. Well, now you're going to have to price it right. And that's where professionals are going to come into play, because if you're not getting somebody that knows the market or has been doing this for a long time, they're going to just tell you whatever they're going to tell you so you can get the listing. And I lost listings because of that. And people got away with it because the market was so crazy. They were getting the higher offers and they made themselves look like, yeah, I told you so. See, I told you I'd get you $80,000 over asking. But that's going to change now, and we're not going to see the bidding wars, or kind of pretty much, I haven't seen a bidding war in a while. All the offers I put in recently for buyers, we paid under or at asking, and nothing over, not even a penny over. We didn't have to go, no appraisal waiver, no inspection waivers, none of that. So it's changing really quick.
So kind of getting back to a more normalized market, like where there's an actual negotiation between both parties.
Exactly.
Because it used to be, a month or two ago, it was all the seller. Like you had to do everything in the book just to appeal to the seller. And it didn't matter what the buyer wanted or needed, right?
Yeah. Even the post-possessions, I know there are going to be still some of that just because people are, but the inventory's up now. So now a seller can't put their house in the market, get it under contract, and go find another home in the timely fashion. Right before, it was like, well, if I sell my house it's going to take me 6 months maybe to go through this bidding war for me to find a home. So I need a post possession, and it put buyers in a bad position because buyers sometimes were staying in hotels just waiting for the seller to get out of the house, and that's not traditional real estate. That's not how it should go. In our brokerage before, we used to frown against post possession. It was like, no, ain't happening. Then it was like, okay, how do we get an attorney to draft up verbiage?
Yeah, 2 years ago, every broker was like, don't do it. And it was never even considered. And that like almost became standard practice in the last couple of years. And now it's going to start to flip around probably pretty quick.
Yeah, we're even, our brokers are saying that's the attorneys telling them, start taking the language back out of there. Like, you shouldn't do it. We didn't like you doing it in the first place, but now definitely pull it out. So
right.
That's coming to our goal.
So I want to go back to something that you said that hasn't really come up in any of the episodes that we've done so far is, how you have different ways of selling a property and structuring the listing contract, and what kind of things do agents that come in and want to get a listing, what are the kind of things that a consumer might encounter from a listing agent in terms of their strategies for listing a property? And let me kind of be a little more clear on what I'm saying. There's a mindset that I'm going to go in and just tell the seller that I'm going to get them whatever price they want, and just say, yeah, we can get you this, and then just deal with price drops later. And then there's another strategy where you try to get them to understand you want to come in low and bid it up. Maybe go through some of the things that a consumer might encounter with different ways that agents might present, doing a listing, and then maybe what your recommendation is of the right way to do it.
There is, I think with this market switching now, I think a lot of people are probably going to do that more of saying, let's come in lower to get people to bid it up some a little bit, because they're going to want to attract, because their inventory is there's a lot more inventory now. It's climbing pretty fast, right? So I could see that more than people saying, let's go for the higher amount, because the higher amount now, once you start price reductions, it's kind of bad for a listing agent. Because I think if you go, I hated ever going into a listing appointment and telling them I'm getting $500,000 for the house, and then 2 weeks later I'm saying, hey, can we drop it down $40,000? They're like, what happened? What happened to your number? So it shows that you're not a professional at that point, because you told them something that wasn't correct. So my personal things I'm going to start doing is marketing it and listing it at market value, what I feel it is at, it's supposed to be at in the beginning, because I feel at that point their house will come off quicker off the market. Longer it sits on the market, the worse it's going to get. So it gets off faster. Right now, I put 2 houses in the market. We end up going under contract within 5 to 10 days, which it sounds like a long time because we're used to, but that is very normal.
That's really good, though.
Yeah, and I had one guy even tell me that. He's like, oh, it was weird. The house across the street sold in 4 hours like 6 months ago. And I said, I understand that, but we're in a different market. But so he was still happy. He got a full price offer. We got through appraisal, got through inspections. They didn't ask for nothing. They did put that in there that they wouldn't ask for anything. The house was newer, so of course didn't have a lot of stuff. But I think we're just going to see a lot of that, and we're going to get back to marketing. You got to market. You're getting there as a professional to sell the house. You got to market the home properly. You got to get back to doing just listed postcards, doing open houses, maybe going around their neighborhood and knocking on some doors and asking people, hey, got this listing coming up soon. You may have a friend, family member looking in this area. Here's my card. Here's a flyer on the house. We got to get back to that. We used to do that a lot, and we sold a lot of houses that way. The market changed. We didn't have to do that anymore. I wasn't seeing open houses. It was hard to even have someone sit open house. If I say you want to sit open house, they're like, why? You're going to put it on the market on Thursday. And you have 50 offers by Saturday, and I do open house. I'm just doing open house for nothing, because everyone comes in and say, got 50 offers, and they just walk out the door, right? So it's going to change. It's changing already, and I think it's for the good. Honestly, I like this market better than the other market personally as an agent, because for buyers, I felt really bad, especially first-time buyers.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't have a chance. I had buyers that just went back renting, and now I could call them here soon and say, hey, there's more inventory, and there's things, and I believe the interest rates will drop a little bit, and they'll make it where it's affordable for them again.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people kind of lose sight of, because they're watching TV, they're seeing the news media, they're talking about gas prices, inflation, home prices, lack of affordability, all that kind of stuff, and there's people that continue to say rates are going to keep going up, and there's a lot of confusion for the general public, because you hear about the Fed raising interest rates. Like they just raised them 75 basis points or 0.75%. And they've talked about doing a couple more, maybe not that exact amount, but there's a pretty good hike coming over the next couple of sessions. And so people think that means, oh, mortgage rates are going to keep going up.
Yeah.
But that's not really the case, is it?
No, it doesn't. And I was the same boat. I thought that until I started educating myself and realized just because the Fed raises doesn't mean the house goes up. It's more for credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, credit cards. So, I've told a lot of friends and family, like, get out of credit card. If you have credit cards, pay them off because you're going to be paying 25% on a $5,000 credit card. Get rid of that debt. That's a debt you want to get rid of.
Right.
Car payments, all that stuff if you can. That's what's going up. I mean, I recently just bought a car and a little shocked on the interest rate. It was probably the highest interest rate I ever paid on a car, and I have a very good score. So I was like, wow. So that's, to me, worse than a housing. I think the housing's not going to do that. The housing market's not going to do that.
Yeah, and just so, the public understands, the whole reason that the Fed is doing this is to get a handle on inflation. It's obviously out of control. They haven't done a good job of getting it under control, but this is their main tool to get under control, and it'll work eventually. Like, we don't know at what point, and when it does, the inflation pressures is what causes interest rates to go up. And once they get rid of the inflation fears and pressures and things start to come down on that side of it, then mortgage rates will start to come down. So I think that's one of the things that's super critical for people to understand. And you mentioned a little while ago, there's people that are sitting on the sidelines thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to wait for the rates to come down, or I'm going to wait for the home prices to come down. Is that a wise thing for them to do?
No, I think like I was talking to someone the other day, if you're a first-time home buyer, you're buying investment property, your forever home, if you see something you like, you see a home, you're not guaranteed that home to be there in 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
What if, especially if you're looking for school districts, if there's a certain neighborhood you want to be in, especially if people say they want RV garages, or they tell me I need an RV gate or I need a 4-car garage, those things don't come up every day. Like a 2-car garage, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, yes, I can see that, those houses do pop up a lot more. But if there's a house that you're just like, man, I really wanted to be, for instance, where I live in Surprise, Marley Park's one of the neighborhoods that everybody's really sought after. I need to be in Marley Park, and I need a 4-car garage. Well, maybe those houses come up once in a while. So if that comes up and you don't want to go buy it because the interest rate's not where you like, you go buy the house now, get it, and then when interest rates drop down, just refinance. Right. That's how I deal with the car. I don't like the interest rate I got, but the kind of car I got is a specialty car. It's not something I had to order. I've been waiting a year for it. So I'm not going to just let it go to somebody else because I don't like the interest rate. I'll just wait for those interest rates to come down, and I'll just refinance the car at a lower rate at the time and just change my payment. To me, it makes sense doing it that way.
Yeah, I think if people think about it, like, when was the last time you had a mortgage interest rate that you stayed in for like even 5 years?
Yeah.
Like, people change their mortgage rates all the time, for lots of different reasons. So to be paralyzed and not go buy a house because rates aren't where you like them today just doesn't make any logical sense to me, especially when we know interest rates are going to come down. If you talk to anybody that like studies this stuff, there's so much evidence telling us that rates are going to come down. We don't know exactly when, but they'll come down. So it's going to be a really short-term situation. But for those houses, especially like you mentioned, when you got a really unique need, for a property, you can't sit and wait. Like, when it pops up, you just got to jump on it, right?
And then people need to get, you can get on the internet and drive yourself real crazy real quick. I see people on there wishful thinking, right? Like, oh, this is going to be worse than 2008. And I'm like, 2008 was a total different reason why it was, everyone knows, bad loans. It was so many different things. People were buying, I think in Arizona, I moved here in 2010, and on my street alone that I was renting on, there was, out of 20 houses, more than half of them were empty. And when I found out from who owned them, I look it up. They're all people from out of state just buying them as they're buying them for vacation homes, and because they're getting zero down, no money out of pocket. They come here, oh wow, new construction, buy it. You don't see that nowadays. People weren't buying. Even that, for me, that bought a vacation home, they can afford it. Yeah. They weren't stretching themselves. They weren't like, oh man, I hope I can make this payment or interest only payment. They actually put down the 20%. They're fine. So those houses are not going to pop up like that. So I just hear it, but I just don't really feel that it's going to be 2008 all over again. I just don't feel that. It's going to be a short-term fix. Like you said, they had to do this. They had to slow down the spending, and it's working somewhat because the car dealerships are already feeling it. They're saying that their people are not in there. They can't offer 0% financing right now, right? So
they actually have cars they can sell now.
Yeah, I went on there and I was shocked. I went to the Chevy dealership and they actually had 15 trucks sitting there. And
Wow.
6 months ago, you didn't see that, man. I mean, you're starting to see car lots starting, and that's good because now you can go there and maybe negotiate on a car again, right? Like, hey,
that's fun. That's super fun.
Exactly. Instead of going there and saying, oh, $50,000 over MSRP, like that's not fun.
No, that's crazy. Yeah, I think the more that people understand and educate themselves and work with people who, are really studying this and live this every day and work in it, I think that's something that is really important. Is you kind of alluded to it earlier, is when you're looking for a realtor to either represent you on the buyer side or to list and sell your house, you got to find a professional that's going to know what they're doing, because if it's somebody that does this part-time or they got into it the last few years, they really haven't experienced a market where you have to learn how to market and sell a property. So for the consumer, like, how do they find that person? How do they find that realtor if they want to sell their house that really knows what they're doing? Like, what kind of questions can they ask or research can they do?
What I would do is first ask how long they've been in business. That's a big deal. And I know, people would say, well, does it mean that they're professional? Well, they've been in long enough. They've been through some cycles, especially like myself. I've been in the business almost 19 years. So I got in 2005. It was booming better than it was even this last one. I mean, it was crazy. I couldn't keep up with sales. I mean, I could not. The builders, I had kind of the same situation. I did new construction. They couldn't even keep up with the demand. There's no way. We had lotteries, and lotteries came back. So, and I went through 2010. That was a tough year, man. 2010 to 2012 was a very, very tough year for realtors. So if someone's been through that, you can probably trust them. They're going to know what they're talking about. And then also I think that see their sales. I mean, I don't want to say they have to be selling 100 homes a year, but if they're selling 1 or 2 houses a year, they may not know there's a reason for that, because if you've been in this business long enough, you should be in the top 10% pretty easy if you know what you're doing and you work hard, and make sure they're working for you. Especially right now as a buyer's agent, you don't want someone just to come in there and just need to sell so desperately and just put you in a bad situation, where they should be able to know that market and say, look, I know you like that house, but I can't let you pay for it for that. We gotta go negotiate. They don't have offers on the table probably. We need to go in there and do something. We need to make sure I do the right thing, because what you want is them to call you back. I mean, that's the key of my business is referrals. If they don't call you back because they're mad at you, or they don't refer to you and your friends because they feel you didn't do a good job, what was it worth to sell? One sale's you're never gonna make this industry by just selling one here and there. It has to be you got to have a filter, especially with referral business.
Yeah, I think we call it commission breath. Like when you got somebody that you could just smell them coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
Like the sale they get so desperate to make the sale that they're not putting what the client needs first. So in this new market that we're in now over the last few weeks, seems so weird to say that. What are some of the things that you think buyers can be doing now in their efforts to go out? Like, what kind of things in the offer can they do, or do they not have to do that they were having to do over the last couple of years to get a house?
Well, they don't. I mean, the biggest thing, they're not going to waive appraisals no more. I think that is going to be, and there'll be a house that comes up on the market that everybody wants, like a unique home in Scottsdale or Arcadia area that maybe a designer built it and everybody knows about that designer or something like that. I could see maybe those kind of homes can maybe still have that, but most people now are not going to have to waive appraisal, which as a lender is like, no one likes doing that, because you're putting the buyer in a really bad position.
Yeah.
If they have the extra cash, and even if they do, they just overpaid big time on a house, right? That's not what we're in the business to do. And I think they're gonna have to waive inspections, which was a hard one for me. That was the hardest thing I would say in the market we just got out of, was when I would get the call and say, well, is your client willing to waive inspections? And I'm just like, man, that is a tough one, because luckily I didn't get any calls later about the house had a serious problem.
Yeah.
I always still got an inspection done for my clients. I just told them, fortunately, you waived it, we can't ask for anything, so you can back out, lose your earnest money, and they're like, usually the house were in pretty good shape. And I would only feel comfortable on a house that was newer, built in 2000 and up. But that's kind of gone away. And I think buyers now, to get themselves in a good position, first of all, financing. Got to have strong you got to have your financing together. And a lot of it is, there's really no more, DPA stuff out there that, people need to worry about as much, but they got to be strong. They got to be, not have a lot of debt and be strong. I think if they come in strong, have their own down payment, if they want to ask for closing costs now, it's fine. I think that we're going to get to that, but their own down payment and strong financing, and they're solid, and get out of debt. I mean, that's what I'm telling a lot of people. If you get yourself somewhat out of debt and not have a bunch of credit cards, you're going to be able to afford the house you want.
Yeah, because those payments on the credit cards, they're gonna cause your cash flow to be worse.
Yep.
If you can knock that stuff out, definitely is going to improve the cash flow, and that'll be helpful if you got to pay a little bit more for the house in terms of the interest rate right now for the short term.
Yeah.
And there's also options out there that we've really just started talking about over the last probably 3 or 4 weeks, and that's getting those seller credits or seller concessions and use that money to buy down the interest rate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty powerful difference when you look at the numbers. Someone says, well, I don't like the interest rate right now. Okay, well, you got a little leverage right now.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you get the seller to help you buy that interest rate down? And now your payments are down where they were, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. It makes it a lot more affordable that way, right?
Yeah, I got an email from Toll Brothers because we have a project called String Ridge next to where I live, and they just brought out, I saw it, 165-day lock. And the reason they're doing it is because they're using their own bank, right? I mean, Toll Brothers has their own, but they're doing something to keep that rate down, and that's probably what they feel. Instead of giving incentives and the upgrades and stuff, now everyone's so driven on the interest rate. Let's go ahead and lock the rates in. So it's on standing inventory or anything that's framing. So they're being smart about it. But I think people are just gonna. I've had people, I've had friends ask me, people stop buying homes. No, they're still buying homes. People are moving here. A lot of jobs are coming here in Arizona. These people come here. They sell a house from another state. They really don't come here to rent.
No,
they're often. I have a good friend of mine that I sold his house, and he's like, I'm just gonna rent for a while, see what happens. He's already calling me, telling me, man, I'm lucky at it. I got a lease that lets me out of it. He's like, I remember why I hated renting. They become homeowners. You don't want to go backwards.
No.
It's something you used to do. You want to keep moving forward. So someone moves here, they want to buy a house. They just want to make sure they're getting the best deal, best neighborhood, whatever fits their needs. So they're going to still buy a home. So they're going to still be house sales. I don't think that this is going to become only investors only market. It's going to be a regular market. It's just things have changed.
Well, that's what some people are missing, I think, in this whole scheme of things is, all the life changes that happen. You're still going to live, and I think my personal experience. You can tell me if I'm crazy, but it seems like when we have these drastic shifts in interest rates, there's a bit of a shock, and people kind of like, oh wow, and I saw it. Like we were trucking along this year until about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, there's a drastic change in, the activity levels that people are doing. But it happened earlier this year too, when we first saw an uptick. The activity slowed for a little bit. It really, for us, didn't last very long.
Yeah.
And then people start to kind of regain their footing, change their perspective a little bit, start hopefully hearing good information out there from people in the industry and realize, okay, maybe I should just, keep living my life and going forward and doing, what I should be doing. So it's probably kind of a transition time. So for buyers, like it's kind of a really good opportunity right now.
Yeah.
Totally different than it was 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, they have a lot more opportunity right now. I mean, I've looked in, just in surprise alone, I just checked this morning. I mean, I would have people around January, February time, they would tell me they want to be like 450 and under. I would click that. I'd be lucky to see 5 houses. Lucky, like if it came up 5, I'm like, oh, I have 5 houses to send to them, right? Sometimes it'd be 2 or 3. I clicked the other day, 98.
Wow.
98 homes under 450 in surprise. Now, that's good for as a buyer's agent, because now I send that link to them, and they're like, oh, wow, I have choices. Yes, you have choices, and you don't have to make a decision in the next hour, right? That's what we do. We end up showing the house, and then it was the famous phone call. Call a listing agent. How many offers do you have?
Right.
What am I going to have to do? My clients were loving it. Oh, and then they got burned out and started saying, don't call, don't ask, just send your highest and best, right? All the attitudes, and it made it not fun. I mean, agents turned into, different. I have new agents that were really nice, and I would say, It's Russell. Like, we've done a lot of deals together. Like, oh, I'm sorry, Russell. I'm just getting bombarded with phone calls. I'm like, I understand. I get it. I understand. And it's sad. It shouldn't be that way. It should be a cool transaction. You should have fun. Buying a house should be fun. It should be a good experience, and you should have that. But when it becomes this, like, almost like the person just feels like, I just got screwed here big time.
Yeah.
It's not a good situation to put them in, man. And they start having second thoughts, like, should I even bought this house?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't get nothing out of this. Like, they didn't even clean the place when they left. They left the trash, and I can't even say nothing, because if I say something, what can I do? They're just going to say, well, sell it to the next person.
Yeah. Well, that was like a week ago, so now it's went up by $10,000, so I'll sell it to somebody else. Like, that's the attitude that you had. Yeah, it's crazy because the whole dynamic has shifted, and like you mentioned, buying a house is one of the most stressful things that you can go through in life. I mean, and the way that it's been the last couple of years, that was just magnified because it was one person getting over on the other one.
Yep.
Like the seller had everything, they just bent them over the barrel, and it's like, you take it and you're gonna like it. And that's the way it was. And now it's starting to shift. Like the barrel's rolling the other way, But I think like if people can get to the point, both agents and buyers and sellers, and come at it from the perspective, like, let's find a happy medium.
Yeah.
Let's be on the same team. Everybody wants the same thing. You want to sell, you want to buy. Let's find a good spot in the middle where both people can come away from this feeling like you got what you wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it should be like, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it hasn't been that way for quite some time.
No.
So when you are talking to somebody that's looking to sell a house and they're getting bombarded with all the advertisements that they see out there, how do you counsel them through that? Because there's just so much garbage out there that people just don't know what to do and what to think about this stuff.
I'm telling you, I've lost a couple of months ago, I lost a listing to one of these companies that are on TV. Everyone knows they're always on TV advertising. And that's what it was. When I went in there, I told them, hey, the market's kind of shifting. I saw it kind of shifting a little bit. It wasn't bad yet, but it started. And I said, hey, let's try to catch the market. And let's just, if you want to go like 10 over with the last house sold, I'm fine with that. But let's not go a little too crazy. And they said, okay, well, we want to think about it, this and that. And it was a past client, which kind of hurts when you have a past client. You really want that to stay there with you. And then they didn't call me back, and then I saw it go online on the market, and it's still on the market. The house is still on the market. They went with the company and told them they're going to get, they advertised, I'm going to 80,000 over, 10,000, all this, and it's still sitting. And I'm contemplating of calling them again, but I shouldn't because they're listed. But I was my past client, so I guess I can, send me an email. But I saw what they listed for, and they've already done a $30,000 price reduction.
Give me their number. I'll call them and say, hey, there's a better agent out there.
Yeah, so it's kind of just, those things. But I try to counsel them through there. But sometimes people have to, unfortunately, maybe go through that. And they're probably going to call me back. But I think as a lot of people usually now, they're going to start seeing that. I always laugh, what are those commercials going to do now? They're not, it's going to be false advertising, right? To say, you sell it in a certain amount of time and then you can stay in your house for a certain amount. That's all going to come to an end.
It's already been
it's already
kind of false advertising, in my opinion.
Yeah, so what's going to happen? But that, and plus even a flat fee. And, I understand, for a while there, the flat fee stuff actually was working because the market was so crazy. I could see a seller, and I guess if I was on the other end, I probably thought like, well, my house is going to sell in 4 hours. Why not just pay a flat fee? You know what I mean? But now you're not going to, the flat fee people, those agents, first of all, they're not, they're real estate agents, but they are just basically like a worker bee there. They just take the order. They tell you what to, to put it in the computer, and that's about it. They don't even negotiate the deal. They put it in there that every offer is going to go directly to the seller. So the sellers become a realtor. Well, now what are they going to do in this market? When someone says, hey, I need closing costs, or I need to buy my rate down, that seller's not going to know how to handle that. They're going to be so used to seeing what they saw the last couple of months. They're going to say, what do you mean they want closing costs? Oh, I don't want to even look at that offer. And the other agents can be like, no, you need to look at it. If they would have hired a professional, someone would have sat down and explained it to them, how it was a couple years ago, why you should take this deal, why so it makes sense, educate them, and they'll be like, okay, that deal doesn't look as bad.
You want to buy a house, but high interest rates have got you down? Take the rate challenge and send us a verifiable loan estimate from another lender, and we'll beat it and pay for your appraisal up to $600. Here at Give Mortgage, being powered by U Mortgage allows us to provide you with unmatched speed and efficiency and the best rates and fees in the market, all while delivering you the concierge level service you deserve. We want you to have an experience getting a mortgage that you'll never forget, and not because you got put through a meat grinder to get it. At Give Mortgage, we give great advice, we give the best rates, and we give back to charity. Visit us at www.give-mortgage.com or call us at 480-331-4684 to schedule a free consultation to see how we can help.
If they're trying to do this on their own, it could be, and I feel bad for the other agent, the buyer's agent on the other side, because they're, when I see those listings come up, I'm just like, oh man, that's gonna be a tough one. I'm negotiating with a seller that probably doesn't really know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of those companies that have gone out of business already.
Yeah.
Like the market has shifted. They're laying off those, worker bee agents. And I think that's a really good point that you bring up, is when you're dealing with a company like that where, you're not necessarily seeing the value and you went ahead and did it, flat fee listing. Yeah. So now you're the seller, you got to figure out these offers. Can you maybe tell people what are the things that you look for as an agent in a buyer's offer to help you distinguish what might be a good offer from a bad offer, so that people understand a little bit more about the things that they should consider now?
The biggest thing to me is financing, the kind of financing they're doing. It's not, if it's VA or not. It's just how much money they're putting down. Earnest money. If they're putting down $500 earnest money, it's probably a bad sign right there. Like they don't have a lot. And then also the terms, closing date. Sometimes are they shortening the inspection period just a little bit? 10 days is a long time for inspections. That is one thing I wish they would change in our contracts, because you think about 10 days, it's almost close to 2 weeks when it's all said and done, after you get earned, because it's the next day after, so it's already 11. If they shorten it down to 7, it's not so much to pressure them, it's just to keep things going. I think as long as transactions keep going out further and further, people start having second thoughts, or just the sellers. It's just, to me, a long period. So those are kind of things I look at, and what kind of lender they're using. I hate to say it, but if they're using people that are like online stuff that not even here in Arizona, or these companies fly by night, you want to stay away from that, because I think that, it's going to make it hard. It's going to make a bad deal because it may not close. And yeah. I've had those in the past, and I've tried to educate the buyer at the time, like, hey, can I switch you to somebody else? And they're like, oh, no, this is what I want to use. And I let it go, and I explained to them that this is a possibility, and I'd hate that 2 days for closing. Hey, here's a cancellation, can't do the deal, and then that lender never even calls you back, and the buyer doesn't even get a call back, nothing. And you're just like, that was a waste of everybody's time. And then they're just burnt out, and they probably just give up at that point, right?
Yeah.
Nothing got accomplished. So that's the kind of, and then also that the realtor fills out everything. I teach our realtors in our office, it doesn't take much time for you to go and fill everything out. Even the other listing agent's name, put their their numbers in there. It's little things like that, to me, that I'm thinking this market's going to change. Realtors are going to get back to the basics again, and maybe writing in notes in the offer of, hey, that my client, really liked the house, they're moving it. Give a little story behind it. Now, you have to write a letter, but something behind it. We got away from that. I think people are just writing offer after offer. It just started getting diluted. I had some offers that would just come over, just offer. No agency disclosure, no HOA addendum. And I'm like, where's all the other paperwork? They're just so like, it's probably going to get signed anyway. And I know that's the attitude they had, right? It's probably going to get signed anyway. So I'll just throw it in there just so my buyer knows I threw an offer in. But they even do it right. Even if I wanted to accept it, no agency disclosure. Like, who's the agent?
Yeah.
So it's just stuff like that I think we're going to kind of get away from again. And it's going to kind of come back to normal. So that's what I would look at, those kind of offers.
Did you think that was mostly coming from agents who were too busy, inexperienced, or maybe some of these shops where like hedge funds and pension funds where they just got like headset jockeys on there? Yeah. Property comes on the market, just throw an offer at it like immediately and don't care about what it looks like?
It was a lot of that. It was that, and also, like you said, part-time agents. First thing, they're just they might be at work for the day, and then their phone's probably blowing up from the buyer saying, this house is going on, we need to jump on it, we need to get on it now, and she probably clicks on the MLS and sees multiple offers, and she's like, oh, I have to have it in by 9 o'clock tonight, probably stressed out, get home from work, feed the kids, and rush to the computer, type it up real quick, send it out, get signatures and get it in. Those offers, I hate to say it, when they came in on me, I presented them, but they weren't presented very well. I mean, the ones that were the agents that actually went through and filled all the paperwork out right, called me, even though I didn't want to take the phone calls and my phone's blown up, still called me, texted me, did those things and said, hey, and sometimes they still didn't get signed, but at least they were in the running, because those offers, I'm like, this is a good offer. This was all filled out right and an explanation. But I think a lot of the part-time agents will probably be gone soon, just because this market now is not gonna be for them. They're not gonna be able to sell their 5 to 8 houses by just at work,
Yeah.
Just knowing family members buying, those days are over with. Because your family, if you have a family of 10, they're probably half of them are in houses, so you maybe got another 5. Your referral base is going to cut down real short. It's going to be gone quick.
Yeah. Well, changes in the market like definitely weeds out, people in the industry, because it's sad both on the real estate and the lending side. The barrier to entry is pretty low. I mean, you guys actually have to do a lot more hours to get your license than we do.
Yeah.
And I mean, people can get into it relatively easily, and you can make good money at it. But when the market slows and you actually have to be a professional, then all those ones who just kind of got into it to make a quick buck tend to disappear.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's an interesting market with a lot of changes really, really rapidly, and we're not done either. Like, we got a lot more changes coming ahead, I think, over the next 6 months to a year, that you got to find a good professional to be able to help you through that process, because it's tough to do like everything online. Like, we're used to doing so many things online. There's a lot of the parts of the process that you can do online, but you can't do everything. Like, you miss a lot of stuff when you try to do it without having a professional to escort you through the process. So from the buyer side of things, if you've got a buyer that's interested in going out and purchasing a property, what are the first things that you tell them, either education-wise or steps that they need to take?
Well, the biggest thing I'd get with them and make sure they get with a lender that knows what they're doing, and make sure get qualified, and make sure, if they need to change some stuff, like, they get with the lender, and like, lender's like, hey, you have this $1,000 credit card. If you pay that off, it's going to make your debt to ratio different. Get them set up that way to make sure they're good to go. Biggest thing is I look at what they're into. If they're a first-time home buyer, my biggest thing, because I learned that when I bought my first house, I always tell them, remember, this is not your forever home. So it may not have every single thing you wish you had in it. Biggest thing is location. You want to get into a decent area that is good for resale, or also if you turn into a rental. And I explained that to them. And maybe if they're a young couple, maybe school districts are not the biggest idea, because they have kids if they do. So it depends on the situation of what they're in, or what cycle of life they're in, right? And kind of go through that way and just see what they need to do. A lot of times people change. I mean, I had one couple recently, they were, townhome. And I knew that they're saying that because they were young, and they thought that's where young people go buy their first house at a townhouse. We looked at townhouses, and after a while, like, when they come out, they're like, feels like an apartment. It feels like what we're living in now. I'm like,
kind of is.
Yeah, kind of is. And then they're like, oh, can we just look at some single family homes, maybe in our price range? I said, well, you're going to probably go up maybe like 30,000, but let's talk to the lender about how much the mortgage is going to be and this and that. They went through that, and then they end up in a single family home. Small, it's a smaller home. It's actually probably a little smaller than even a townhouse, but they liked it now because she was like, we never told you, but we wanted to buy a dog. So I said, oh, you would have told me in the beginning. I would have told you it was single family, because a townhouse is probably not the best. And then I said, what kind of dog? And she's like, those new, whatever one, they're like, they're poodle and lab mix, whatever, those ones that everyone's into. Those dogs. Those dogs get pretty good size, man. They're not little dogs. So I was like, you wouldn't have liked to be in that condo townhome with that dog. That would have gone really quick. And the house they got has a good sized yard. So I think the biggest thing is, I'm going to get back to where the one thing I say I got away from, because everyone says, well, what did this market do that you slacked on? Because everyone slacks somewhere.
Oh, yeah. You had to. Like, there's only so many hours.
Right? My biggest thing was buyer consultation meetings. I was such a big part. Like, when I got a new buyer, I would want to meet with them in person and sit down with them and find out, have a conversation, get things answered like that, right? I got away from that because I was just I was just moving. I probably lost deals out of that. I probably lost some listings because maybe I didn't get back to my clients fast enough, because you're moving so fast. Now everything's kind of slowed down. I could get back to being Russell again. I could get back to like doing what made me be a successful realtor for so many years, is actually have that. And that did, because through those meetings, I found out so much about them. I mean, really, I found out who they were, what they wanted, and you build a bond there. So then if questions come up, they go home and a family member tells them like, oh man, you know, my cousin just got his license. They're like, no, Russell's our guy. We met him. He's such a nice guy. We have a lot in common. I really like the way he is. He explained everything to us. Once you build that bond, it's a little, now things go sometimes, but it's a little bit harder. But when you just talk to him on the phone for 5 minutes and he saw your reviews and that's all you're standing on, it's pretty easy for them to walk away from you. They will.
Sure.
I mean, they go home or they go to work and their friends like, man, they brag on their realtor so much. Like, wow, yeah, he talked to me for a couple of minutes, but there's no bond there. It's easy for them to let that go. But when you get to know somebody or you feel like they're part of your team now, right? It's a little harder to just say, I'm gonna stop using him, especially if you've done nothing wrong. And there's times you didn't do nothing wrong. It's just situations popped up. Maybe you watched your kid play basketball on that Saturday, and you didn't answer your phone right away, and they wanted to see this house. They'll wait for you.
Yeah.
And I got to this point with this market. Some people didn't wait for you because you didn't have that. You know, you didn't have build any rapport with them.
Well, plus they were told left and right, you can't wait.
Yeah.
Like you got to jump on things immediately. So if you're not ready and it takes you half an hour to call back, it's like on to the next one.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point to make is, you know, for the consumer, because like for them to choose who to work with, it's important for them too. It's not just, you know, that you build that relationship with them. That helps them figure out who they want to work with, because they got to ask you a lot of questions to figure out, are you the right fit? Like, are your interests aligned? You know, are you thinking about, you know, them in a bigger picture other than just a transaction? Because I think that's where, you know, you can make sure that you're doing the best job is when you understand who these people are, like who these clients are, what are their goals, what are they trying to accomplish long term. That's the conversations we have with everybody in the beginning is, you know, we get them thinking and talking about like where you want to be in 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, what is the long term plan here? Because people can get their blinders on and just, you know, think about, I need to get a house. And you leave out that I want to have a big dog, you know, like you got to have those conversations about like, what are the plans? Are kids coming? Are pets coming? And all those things. And when you do that, then I think the consumer understands better that, hey, you're really thinking about them and the long-term relationship that you're going to have with them. And that's a great way for the consumer to distinguish who's the right person to represent them.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want to, I mean, personally, before I got into real estate, I bought a house and I wasn't a realtor. And that realtor at the time is the one that got me into real estate. She was became a friend to me.
Right.
Some sort. Like she would stay in contact with me. And then when we decided, I bought my house before I got married. And then when I got married, then we were having a kid come in. A 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 900 square feet got real small real quick. And I called her and she said, oh, well, you know, we talked about this at the time you were single. Now you're married. She's like, so your life's changed. She's like, well, it's time to take the next step. And that's how she explained it to me. It's time for us to go find a little bigger home for you. Do you want to rent this one out? Do you want to sell it? If you sell it, you could take the equity you got out of it for your down payment. And we went through the whole scenario. And I looked at her like, man, I need her. Like she was needed in my life at the time for me to make decisions. Well, that's the way I run my business. I want it to be where I have clients that call me for, Russell, I want to remodel my bathroom. What tile would you pick? And people might think like, oh, they're bugging me. No, they're not bugging me. Actually, I like that they think me so highly to ask me what tile they want to put in their house or their decisions. Because once you're a part of that, you become part of them. And that's what this is about. To build relationships in this business is such a big plus. If you're not doing that, you're in it for the wrong reasons because you're not going to last. And, you know, I told a girl that they tell me, oh, I may not be able to buy in a year. And I said, that's fine. And she's like, oh, you don't care? I said, I still will be here in a year. I'm not going anywhere. But there is agents, like you said, they're commissioned. He said, Brad, they need a commission now because they don't know if they're going to be in a year if they don't get a commission now, right? And that's to me, I mean, personally, I wouldn't want to work with somebody like that because it's like, I want to be able to call that person in a year and ask questions. Or, hey, remember you sold me this house and we got something on inspection and I don't remember what it was, but the guy said it wasn't a big deal, but was. And I said, oh, yeah, let me look through there. And I said, oh, it was the AFCI breaker in there. It wasn't tripping. It wasn't a big deal, but I have someone that could take care of that for you. And those kind of little things like that mean a big difference later on for clients.
Well, people only buy, typically a few houses in their lives. They don't go through it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know everything about what you're supposed to look out for in the process of not just buying a home or financing a home, but owning a home by going online. if you could have a resource, somebody in your life that is going to stick with you for the long haul and be that person you can go to, if you pick the right person that's got your interests in mind, it's super valuable to have that person that you can go to for whatever, whether it's tile color or, pet advice or whatever.
It's cool to see, especially clients, you watch them and you just see them grow. Like, they go from this, or they start buying rental properties. And then, I have a guy that did that, and it's like, I look at him like, man, that guy's done. I mean, he actually listened to me at a young age, and he's actually he has more rentals than I do. Like, he's doing really good, man. I mean, he took this thing to heart, and he really did a good job with it. And he's building something good for his kids, so it's cool to see that. I think with this market too, it's going to kind of get us back to some basics, they call it, right? Just the basic stuff instead of just turning. Because it gets old. I was telling a guy the other day at the gym that today, because he was talking about, mastermind club. And I told him all that's all great. I think it's great. But I said, just remember, you go from 25 homes to selling 50 to 100 to 200. Time. Remember, this thing called time. Your kids, you can't get that back. So just remember, you might want to run fast for a little while, but then sometimes you got to take a step back. And he's like, well, maybe this market, I said, this market is going to put us all back. We're going to gear down just a little bit to remind some things, So it's good to see that, at times as well.
Yeah, there's a balance to it all. Like, you can't just be work all the time. It'll drive you crazy.
Yeah.
But like you said, the last couple of years, that's a lot of what, everybody in the industry had to do, is like, you did work all the time and you did go a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Now sanity starts to come back into it, kind of makes things a little bit better. So just to kind of finish things up here, if you had one piece of advice for people that are like thinking about buying a home today, like what would be the best piece of advice that you can give out?
I would say definitely start, like, maybe getting a list of things that you want in a home, and now you could probably get those. Like, if it was, I really want a 3-bedroom, but I just was gonna go settle for a 2-bedroom because maybe people weren't bidding on those as much or whatever. Get a list and maybe get out there what you want, especially, I would say, locations. I think people with this market kind of crazy, I believe people were probably buying homes in locations they probably wouldn't have if the market was different. So I wouldn't say be totally strict about it, but kind of have a little bit of want list. And I think now you're going to get more of those wants than before. So I think the biggest thing that you said, the inventory's there, and now you can actually go shop. We would say, hey, you got your pre-qual letter, let's go shopping. Well, literally, we could say that now. Let's go shopping because there's more stuff out there to look at. So that's what I would do. Get in. I wouldn't shy away from buying because of interest rates. I think it's going to be a mistake that people are going to make, and later on realize they probably shouldn't have listened to that, because you could always refinance. My house, I've been in since 2014. I bought it brand new, and I refinanced the thing 4 times. And I'm a realtor. And a lot of times they even change the rate, which is different things. I bought a rental property, so I pulled some money out. There's just different. I remodeled, pull a little money out, whatever it is, your life situation. But you always, if things go back down a little bit, you could just always refi. It doesn't cost that much to refi. Like, you could probably, what does it cost to refi a house about?
I mean, the hard costs are probably in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, and you can sometimes get it to where you get all the costs covered.
It's not like they're going and like adding another $30,000 onto. It's not a big number where it makes sense, especially if interest rates go down a little bit. Then your payment goes lower and stuff. And I've had people refinance out of a 30 into a 15 because they got a better job, and they were like, I'm going to pay this thing off faster, and they refinanced just because of that. And they've told me that, because I sold them the house. I'm like, you only have 5 years left, and like, I didn't sell you down. Like, oh yeah, we went down to a 15. I'm like, oh wow, so 10 years you really knocked this thing down, right?
Yeah.
So there's different options, but that's what I would do. I would not shy away from this market, and and I always tell people, you catch breaks at time. I think the market right now with interest rates, and then also we're in the summer, so it's hot in Arizona.
People don't like moving here in the summertime.
So you have options there, and I tell people, if you wait, then winter time sometimes around that December time frame, because everyone's worried about Christmas time. There's always pockets where you kind of slip in, and maybe that house is listed for $310, you might get it for $300. You got to maybe get it for $290. So I wouldn't get on the sidelines because of the interest rates. I think it's just a bad idea. Keep going. I mean, now if you're looking to buy, you're not in a rush. You'll find something. Something will pop up what you want.
Yeah, I mean, those list prices, you're seeing reductions off the list prices. People are coming back to reality a little bit, and some people have said to us, well, yeah, but I'm refinancing, I'm spending money to do another loan, in 6 months or a year. Yeah, but look at your cost for that refinance compared to how much you're probably going to save by buying a house in a market where you have more choices. It's not going crazy overheated. And then on top of that, the amount of equity growth that they're still going to have. I mean, most people anticipate somewhere in the 9, 10, 12% range on appreciation this year. We're already ahead of that in Arizona. And even if it's 5%, which is kind of a normal rate, like over a year on a $400,000 house, you're looking at 20 grand.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to cost you 20 grand to refinance. So even it costs you 5 grand to refinance. Well, you're $15,000 ahead by buying now and then refinancing when you can time it. Because trying to time a purchase when rates are, at their lowest is really difficult.
Yeah.
Because you got to go shop, you got to get under contract, you got a 30-day escrow period or whatever, and rates can change while you're in that actual activity of going out and looking for a property. Whereas if you already own the property and you already live in it, well, then it's a lot easier to time it for your refinance because you don't have to move. Yeah. There's not 2 transactions that have to happen. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense for people to be sitting on the sidelines trying to time, a purchase. Yeah. Just get it done now, get that appreciation going for yourself while you can, and then, just redo the financing because you're probably going to do it anyway. Like if you got 10%, 20% equity, well, then people have been refinancing to pull money out to do renovations or paying off. Maybe they couldn't get all their credit cards paid off. They're paying 20, 25, 30% interest on them. Well, maybe you can consolidate some of that stuff too and improve your cash flow. So, and
I think the builders, they have, I've heard they're having a lot of cancellations happening just because some of these builders took a year and a half to build these homes.
Oh, yeah.
And people's interest rates went up, and they're already stretching themselves. And I had a guy that was a firefighter told me this. He said, well, a guy in the department, when he got the house, he told him, I can't believe you're going to make that payment, man. I know how much money you make, like you. And he's like, I'll get roommates. And he was like, man, you're going down the wrong road. Well, now it's ready to close, and the interest rates went up. It's even a worse situation for him. So he's probably going to cancel just because he's realizing. But from my understanding, he said the builder's going to put that back on the market at the base price, and all those upgrades are just going to give them away. So it's like $60,000 worth of upgrades. It probably didn't cost the builder $60,000. It probably cost them $20,000. Yeah. But they're just putting it back on base price. So someone's going to come in there and get a pretty good deal on that house. They're going to come in there like, oh, base price. I get all these upgrades. I close now. Bonus, right? So a buyer standing on the sideline doesn't know about that. And then a year later, interest rates went down. Well, that house is gone. Builders, once they're dead, they're going to stop doing all that. They're not going to get those houses.
That's the thing that when you try to time it for interest rates to come down, guess what's going to happen? Everybody's going to be jumping back into the market. It's going to get crazy again, and now you're going to be competing and probably overpaying again. So, just don't wait.
Get in and do it.
So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, they think that you might be a good fit for them, what's the best way for people to contact you? Give us your contact info.
My cell number is the best way. It's 602-904-1172, or you can reach me, you can email me at russell@retsy.com. I have a website that's russell-harris.com, and all my reviews on there. I have a thing on there with a home evaluation. You can click on there if you want to see what your house is worth, and I have a lot of buyer stuff on there as well that people can look at.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming in. I think this is a lot of good information, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys all next time on the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Take care. Thanks for joining us, and please remember to go and subscribe, like, share, all that cool stuff to help us grow, and come back tomorrow to listen to our next episode. Until then, go out and live life uncensored.
Thanks for listening to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to help us out and subscribe. Follow and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. And check us out on YouTube for the full video podcast. If you want more information on any of the topics discussed on today's episode, email us at uncensoredrealestatepodcast@gmail.com or give the Cardenas Mortgage Team a call at 480-331-4684.